In this episode, we are in conversation with Jordi Torras. He is the founder of Inbenta. So Inbenta was founded more than 15 years ago, and it helps companies automate conversations via chatbots. Inbenta requires no training, so your team can focus on conversation design rather than focusing on improving cognition. Inbenta's patented lexicon handles all of that complexity for you. This makes sure that you can go live quickly and get value from day one. So Jordi and I talk about both Jordi's personal journey and how Inbenta came to be. We discuss the types of organizations that benefit most from Inbenta's technology, and we talk about the industry as a whole, as how it's advanced and where it's headed. I very much enjoyed this conversation, and I know you will too. Today we are in conversation with Jordi Torras, the founder and CEO of Inbenta. Good to see you, man. Lovely to have you here.
Absolutely, Hans. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a real pleasure.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. I think what we discussed last week is I've known about you for a very long time, and I've known about your company for a very long time, and we never cross paths personally. So this is the first time that we have like a proper chat, and I think it's very nice that we bring people on this journey to sort of explore a little bit, you know, who you are, what you've been up to, and how you founded a company, and you know what makes that company so awesome, some of the problems that it's solving, some of the things that it's doing, and the future of that. So
absolutely,
yeah, it's great to learn about those things. So in conversational AI, that's always like the first question. There's like so many people have their own journey into this space and different backgrounds, and it's always really fascinating. So just very keen to know, you know, what's your story, what's your deal, how did you end up founding this company? Take us all the way back.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Hans. Will be my pleasure. And just as you said, right, we've been working on conversational AI for a while, and so it's great that meeting you guys who are exactly in the same space from the training, consulting, and implementation perspective. So that's amazing. So we started this journey at Inbenta, basically trying to solve the problem that keyword-based search engines basically had. And when we started all that, essentially, the big problem to solve was, okay, I have lots of pre-stored answers, or you know what we would call frequently asked questions, right? That's a section that is now 50 years old. I mean, is as old as the internet, I believe. So the question is, you know, that organizations had these frequently asked questions already in their websites, and that was a very common section that you can still see nowadays in most websites. And if you have 5 frequently asked questions, well, the problem or the probability that you as a user, you will find any of these 5 frequently asked questions useful is very low, because, you know, they're going to solve only 5 particular issues. If they have 1,000, then, you know, you're not going to read one by one, because that's a tedious problem, is too long, didn't read kind of problem. So you're not going to do that. So it seems natural to say, okay, if we have so many frequently asked questions to solve most of our customers' problems, we can add a search engine, right? So you type your stuff, and then the search engine will bring you frequently asked questions. The problem is, and that's how we started at Inbenta, is when you type these words for what you are searching, most search engines will pull results that simply contain the words that you typed. That's what a search engine does, right?
So these were like on websites previously where you would get like this long string of like answers on one page, and then you were still on a scavenger hunt.
Exactly. So you put a search. The problem is when you search, actually you're going to use the words that come from your problem. And their words might be totally different from the words of the frequently asked question. You might ask a question like, hey, can I bring my Doberman in the plane? Versus the best answer might be, this is our policy to travel with domestic animals. There's no common word, but hey, that's basically one thing is answering the other. So we develop our technology to overcome that problem. And we have built this an NLP, right? Natural language processing, to essentially try to compute how two sentences mean the same thing or a very similar thing. You might have, for example, a frequently question that says, how can I reschedule an appointment? Hypothetically. But, a user will come and say, hey, I want to change the date of our meeting. Well, you say reschedule, you said appointment, the other guy says meeting, says change the date. So totally different words. So a regular or like a traditional keyword-based search is not going to work. So we developed a technology to match user questions with answers. And that's something that happened in the 2010s, right?
Yeah.
And very successful. That's basically we built the entire lexicon ground up. And then when the conversational AI comes in, it's like, well, essentially, that's not, the problem is kind of the same. We can now use that engine to essentially match user questions with intents, right?
Yeah.
Which is the whole mantra on the AI space in the conversational AI. The advantage here is that we had so much experience and language knowledge and NLP that now we are able to match these user questions with intents with no training. That's basically the thing. Is like, we don't require you to have to give the AI examples and examples and examples, or utterances, as they call it. So that's basically pre-built in the system. That's the story over here.
Yeah, so a lot of these systems, they have their intent structure, their architecture. Somebody says that there's an utterance, and it's pretty much statistics. We're shooting darts based on statistics. Oh, there's some similarity here. Let's try this intent, or there's some competing intents, so we want to sort of ask another question to sort of remove that ambiguity. But you have built the system in a way that it actually understands the meaning of what somebody says, and then you can map that to whatever the intent is. So rather than a statistical model, it's a linguistic model.
Total. It's a linguistic model. That you are totally right. Because now we live in this world, right, for the last maybe 10 years of absolute faith in machine learning. As we all came to believe that, if you throw enough data, intelligence will emerge magically from that data, thanks to machine learning algorithms, which is true in some cases, right? It's machine learning and deep learning algorithms have been amazingly successful with applications like image recognition or pattern recognition, or even game theory like Go and many other, right? So it's been successful. But when it comes to natural language processing, this is yet to prove. I mean, we just believe that by throwing examples, we're gonna get all that. But in many cases, it simply doesn't work like that. And most of the systems will come back to you and say, hey, if the results are not what you wanted, well, give us more data. You didn't enter enough data. So then you ask, okay, how much data is enough data? And they say, I don't know. As long as you are unhappy, throw more data. So, and natural language processing is probably one of the most difficult challenges in AI. That's the reality, right? So just by brute force probability examples is, so Hans, you are a very smart guy. I know that. And do you speak Russian?
I don't know. It's a bit rusty. But, yeah.
Okay. Oh, do you speak Japanese? Tell me a language that you really don't speak.
I don't speak Japanese. I don't speak Russian. I speak English, Dutch, and Frisian, which is a small
Frisian.
language. Yeah.
Yes. I know about Frisian because I am from Barcelona. So my mother tongue is Catalan. So I know a bit about minority languages in Europe. Yes, fascinating topic. So anyways, you start tomorrow working for a call center in Tokyo for a big corporation in Japan. Man, they're going to fire you in 8 hours or less for a simple reason. You don't speak Japanese. You don't understand anything. Yeah. So you tell the guys, okay, no problem. I will learn. The only thing you have to give me is examples of user questions, and I will start memorizing these examples and give the right answer. How is that going to work? How can you effectively make someone believe that you, just by giving you examples in a language that you don't understand in the first place, trying to figure out, ways to say, well, when they say these kind of sounds, that's kind of the answer that I'm giving. That's going to take a long time for you to be effective. So imagine that's what machine learning is supposed to do. Just by throwing examples, they're supposed to learn entire logic, which of course is not happening. What machine learning does in most cases is just memorize these examples. And that's very ineffective, we believe. That takes a long time for our potential customers to collect all that data.
And did you, because I imagine sort of when this conversational AI started emerging more and more a couple of years ago, that you were very much counterculture in a way then with your approach, because everybody's invested in deep learning and doing that statistical approach. Do you now see an uptake on the Inbenta side because you see a disappointment now broader in the market of people that are like, maybe that Jordi guy might be right there.
That's a very good question. And indeed, let's say 2016, the whole deep learning and machine learning and the chatbot kind of re-emerge of the whole thing. I have to confess, I got concerned. Because I say, hey, we have invested here a lot of time and energy and money and all that. And now with this algorithm, right, deep learning applied to natural language, boom, they're gonna have that technology that is able now to learn the language, to understand language, to drive a car, to do so many things. But hey, Hans, this is 2021. How many full self-driving cars have you seen today? None, because it's harder than they promised. So same thing when it applies for natural language processing. It's harder than it seems. So at the end of the day, we do use machine learning algorithms. We do, and we apply those algorithms to the data that we have, which is user behavior. So you see, there's a user asks a question, and it's inevitable that the linguistic system will have several potential options. And then what we do is like, okay, let's see what users prefer and let's use this as a machine learning. So basically, we do apply a heck of machine learning material based on the data that is free and comes all the time, which is user behavior.
Yeah, so based on so you have the linguistic model that requires no training and it extracts potential intents, and then you use machine learning for the disambiguation based on behavioral patterns that people might have.
Correct. That's exactly what we do. We call it like a digital brain with two hemispheres, right? That we are two persons inside our head, and it's like two brains, one in every hemisphere, and we don't realize that, but basically in every human head, different potential behaviors are all the time analyzed, and then they're negotiated between the two hemispheres, and one is in charge of logic, Another one is more like imagination and creativity. So we do a similar thing. One is one hemisphere, one digital hemisphere is linguistic. It's all about language analysis, computational linguistics. And the other one is all about machine learning. So it's about experience and about machine learning, neural networks. And as you might imagine, at the beginning, when I have a new customer, the machine learning, well, hasn't had time to learn yet. But over time, the machine learning hemisphere gets more and more experience. So you will see that there is, let's say, a local learning curve. So our systems get automatically better just by making sure that the user behavior is recorded and used as training data.
Yeah, and so then when you have a new customer, how long does it take for a new customer to go live with you, and what is then the uptake like 3 or 6 months later?
Good question. And if I answer depends, that's
it's very disappointing.
It's very disappointing, and yet the truth. But typically, right? We say to our customers, "Hey, do you have the content? Do you have that content already? If you do, that's half of the problem is already solved. What is that content? Maybe your existing knowledge base. Maybe, hey, take your old frequently asked questions section that you had somewhere buried in your website, and we're going to use that. So that's the first step. Then we go live, and that's if we have the content, we can go live in 24 hours, and that's really fast. And then what is going to happen is you start measuring, you start understanding what your users are asking and which content you should create. And then you start saying, okay, I need to figure out now how to deal with conversation. Once I understand what customers are asking, and to do that, we offer all these analytics tools, what we call symbolic clustering, basically mapping out what users are asking. And then you have to start figuring out what is the dialogues that you have. And then companies like yours, Hans, is when they come really handy, because it's like, okay, now that I understand by what my customers are asking, and now that I have an AI that will match these questions with actual answers, now I start to think, what is the strategy for these answers? What I'm going to say, how I'm going to say that, which the kind of the dialogues, which transactions should I put together? So, in a couple of weeks you are live, but I would say it takes maybe 3 months until you have a full trained, full featured chatbot. And then of course there is a maintenance to basically make sure you keep up with any changes or new challenges or new questions. Yeah. That's a better, more realistic answer to your question.
Yeah, and that maintenance, that is then more on the content side rather than on the model side.
Correct. It's more on the content side, but that's the catch, right? So if you are down the line in production and you say, okay, I need to create a new content today, with a tool that uses machine learning, is going to tell you, oh, great, give me the new content and give me the training data for that content. And then you're going to say, well, it is new, so I don't know the training data. And basically, here we are. That's you need to add training data, versus with a symbolic AI solution like Inbenta, you basically put the new content, and it is the AI who is in charge to understand that new content and give and provide these answers when the relevant questions are asked.
Yeah, so it's probably going to be easier to get the scale, because what you see is the content people and the business people, they get very excited that there's a chatbot, so they want to add more use cases, and the corpus growth. And if in a machine learning approach, you can have you need the training data, but you also have all these competing intents. Right, so then all of a sudden you get that battle where you're going to be running k-fold tests all the time because you want to make sure people get to the answers. So you have, once you really commit to conversational as an enterprise, you start creating a lot of content, but then actually the access to that content becomes increasingly more problematic because the intent structure is hard to scale with competing intents.
Absolutely. And I think that you said here a beautiful concept, competing intents. And that's exactly what happens. You ask a question, and every intent is a potential answer. So any AI needs to score every intent and try to choose the best one or the best ones. But when you have no training data for that intent, they are unable to compete, right? So that's basically what if you use only brute force machine learning, you need to basically try to figure out these examples just by pulling them out of your heck, right? It's like, I don't know. I imagine that these are the examples, but it's always costly and requires lot of at the end of the day, it's not economic from a maintenance standpoint.
So your typical customers, I guess it's like the usual suspects, right? The banks, telco, utility companies, like high volume customer service companies.
Correct.
And what do these teams then look like? Because what we see a lot of these companies is that, so we train people for AI training, conversation design, and copywriter. Usually the ratio between the three roles is 3-2-1. So there's 3 people training the model, 2 people designing the conversations or the interaction, and there's 1 very strong copywriter. Doesn't mean you always need 6 people. That's kind of like the balance. But you don't need those AI training people, right? So what is typically, if I'm a telco with, like, I don't know, 100 use cases in this thing, what does my team look like in general when I'm an Inbenta customer?
Oh, good question. Indeed, you don't need 3 people training the system. That's unneeded. So you free all these resources. What we advise is, instead of 3 training data scientists and 1 copywriter, is you have 4 copywriters, because at the end of the day, it's all about content. You need good content, comprehensive content, and the more you invest in that content to be short, specific, well understood, and you are really able to try that content with your customers, that every content that you produce will have a great return on investment. And we say, okay, take these resources, put them in content, and you are free from training. Our AI takes the responsibility of this training data. It's not you don't have to take care of that.
Yeah. So with a lot of companies, like, they want to leverage conversational AI because of the promise of, personalized transactional conversations, bringing down costs, making people happier. But in order for them to unlock that potential, they actually have to turn themselves into machine learning practitioners, AI trainers, and that's what they need to get good at. Whereas with you, it's actually, you can focus on what's the conversation that I want to have with people.
Correct.
So there's nothing in the way and nothing's blocking an organization from actually thinking about, I have these customers, they have these issues. What is the most human-centric conversation that I would like to have with them to get them a good experience and make everybody happy?
Exactly. We totally, we don't get much into the content space. Our customers are supposed to do that. And at the end of the day, it's a partnership, right? With the overall system is as good as the content is. The only thing we can do is to make sure that content will be found, will be matched from the right intents. But at the end of the day, having that content is the most crucial and critical part, which is precisely what you guys, I understand, help your customers do with Conversational Design Institute. Is exactly that. Is how can I make sure that my content is effective?
Yeah, and I like that, because it's kind of, if I have 1,000 hours to spend to learn something new, if I'm an enterprise, if I'm an insurance company, would I want to get good at training a language model, or would I want to get good at giving my customers a good conversation? And I think that should be almost like a no-brainer then, right? To sort of focus on the interaction and making sure everybody it's always like we need to make sure that we understand what people say, and we want people to feel understood. And here, you don't have to worry about understanding what people say. You just to focus on making sure people feel understood and get their problems resolved. That's that it is a nice approach. And where do you now see, because you sort of went against everybody with this model, and now I guess a lot of people with some of the disappointments in machine and deep learning now, I don't know how that evolves. So you sort of, that's a big win for you, I guess. But what's now next for Inbenta that you want to focus on? Is it going more, making it easier to leverage more conversational interfaces and do voice and on the social media channels, or maybe you're already doing some of that, or where's the product development heading?
That's a good question, because as I said, right, was basically 2016 is like, oops, we kind of have this big competitor called new algorithm, right, or deep learning, and we did get into that, and we had our R&D working on that, experimenting on that, and trying to take the best out of it. And you know what? Didn't work. At the end of the day, it worked always worse than our existing algorithms. So instead of having these two competing algorithms, we came up with this idea of combining two algorithms in this hybrid kind of solution, this kind of brain with two hemispheres that I was talking to you about. And now, just as you said, we have the system up and running, and where we are for the future is like, okay, once you have the conversational AI, you realize that, okay, which channels are you having these conversations? Classic is this widget on your website, right? But now, if you're in Europe or in Asia, you would appreciate being able to deal with your customers with WhatsApp, with text messages, with Slack. So there is a whole mantra around multi-channel, right? And it's very hard to keep up if you say, okay, I'm going to have Facebook and WhatsApp, okay, and then, oh no, wait, also text message, oh wait, also Instagram, oh wait, also Slack. So there's always another channel. So if you try to have this integrated into the product, it makes it hard to keep up. So what we have decided is saying, okay, we have our API, and essentially the multi-channel is going to be essentially connection modules that are free for our customers. So we have something called the Integration Hub, where we are constantly publishing new integrations. And one of these integrations, that's interesting integrations, is voice. So, okay, if you have your conversation and you have your effective conversation digitally, you could theoretically bring that conversation to voice. And we are having many of these integrations right now going on. Kind of work, well, if you know Siri and all these assistants, you know the drill, right? You ask a question, you wait a few seconds or some weird silence, and then the system comes back with an answer. Because basically the problem is solved in two spaces. First, translate voice to text, then try to understand what the heck is the text about, then producing an answer, and once you have the answer, translating that to voice. But we humans, we don't do that, right? We speak as human is speaking, you are hearing, and you are already creating hypotheses for a potential answer. Yeah. So that's a fascinating space on AI as well, right? We as humans, we use our eyes to read the lips. For me, I'm not a as you might hear, I'm not a native English speaker, right? So at the end of the day, and I think you are not also, right? So good news is we can understand each other, but for me, it's easier to understand English speakers, particularly the ones that speak super quick, if I have a webcam, because then I can see the lips moving, and my brain is syncing both things. None of that AI is built yet. None of the of the technologies are really using sound and image and meaning to basically produce that. Because if we could, then you would have Siri answering right away, which is not the case. I think this is some of the the spaces that we're exploring now with different partners in the speech area.
But a lot of that language processing is also going to take place more on the device itself, right? To make it faster. Because now it's like you take the input and they send it all the way through Iceland to Palo Alto or Mountain View, I guess, and then it goes back and through service there. So that slows it down. And I think a lot of the like Apple devices and Google devices will have more of that NLU on the device to speed it up a little bit.
Totally. That's totally right. But hey, if you have 20 million neurons in your neural network to process language, it simply they don't fit in one. Too many. But yes, phones. Exactly. Maybe, and there are already some initiatives, right? The new laptops from Apple, they come with a machine learning processor, which is amazing. So I believe that we're going to see now devices coming with tailored or specific microprocessors for machine learning in our mobile devices. I'm pretty sure they are already. I mean, I have no idea, right? But I believe they are working already on that.
Yeah, so that makes everybody. So any customer that's using Inbenta has their content in order, has designed properly. Sort of voice first in a way that you can, deploy it on any channel pretty much. Because our belief is always, if you can do the conversation via voice with like the bare minimum real estate, then you can also do it on a chatbot, on any channel. So if you do that properly, you have your content management, you've designed well, and sort of that on-device processing goes up so that the interaction is even faster, then you can really, any company can sort of create a wonderful human-centric experience, no matter where the customer is, actually.
Correct. And then this is one of the things that we are working right now, which is, okay, so we have all these call centers with humans working there. And then you have this conversational AI taking care of some conversations. How can they work together? So we are now developing this concept that we call microbot, right? Or micro chatbot, which is essentially a number of microbots that would solve specific problems. So instead of having like, okay, is it either a chatbot or a human, they will be both working together, I believe.
So if I need to ask, like, so I'm talking to a customer, it's like, oh, that's interesting. I now know that I need a bunch of your personal information or whatever, or like the bot can take over the process. And once it gets complex.
Exactly. We see these already in some specific cases for security purposes. For example, when in the call center, they will ask you for your credit card information. They will say, now we need your credit card information, but don't give it to me, give it to this. But then one day, the call center agent goes into the really is an IVR that only is able to manage numbers, and then you enter your credit card information there. So that's a very simplistic model of a microbot, right? But essentially saying, okay, now to take your order for the pizza, my colleague microbot 1 is going to do that for you, and you can have a number of microbots that will, at the end of the day, speed up the process that the human have to do all the time, right? So we are working on this space, the idea of microbots, the idea of bots of bots, and the capability to work together with humans to improve customer experience.
Does that mean that if I'm an Inbenta customer somewhere next year or maybe sooner or later, that if I log in, I'm going to see like a library of like predefined components of microbots that I can sort of string together and integrate with all these? Is that sort of the thing that you're sort of like an app store almost of validated components that customers can use these microbots?
Exactly. Okay. Yes, that's exactly the space. We will have these libraries of microbots that solve specific purposes, and we will try to bring what software development has had for many years, right? Software development, when they started with Fortran and COBOL and whatnot in the 50s and 60s, one computer program was one monolithic space. Now we use microservices, right? The specific software that solves specific things, and we use APIs. So software now is way more modular and use object-oriented paradigms to solve the problem. So what we see is like, okay, we're going to take the same concept to the chatbot. Now, one chatbot is today, most of them are one monolithic implementation. Okay, this is our chatbot. Yeah. We believe that more and more we're going to need to make this modular to be able to have particular conversations taking over by particular chatbots. So that the same idea that today we are talking about the microservices, I believe that in the future, very near future, we're going to talk about microbots.
Yeah. And then microbots in a way that I can edit them and I can change them and I can give them my tone of voice and the soul of the company so that we don't have the same boring robotic experience regardless of the company. Because I think that's sort of where some people have tried to do templates, but templates don't really work. But actually, what's the structure of the conversation? What's the interaction that takes place transactionally? If you have that component and then give the company the freedom to make it sound the way they want to and change the words, then that's definitely something that can work. And everybody just makes use of these libraries of these microbots, and you sort of go deeper into your system, become more transactional, much faster, I imagine. So then on one hand, you're helping customers save time where they don't have to train any language model. At the same time, you make it much easier for them to go deeper into the back end with these microservices.
Absolutely. But also, as we have seen with software development and the technologies on the internet, right? We have today things like RESTful API and JSON, right? These standards at the end of the day are used every day to make different technologies to interact with each other. And it's all about the protocol. So the protocols are there today that allows you to connect your CRM with your business intelligence system and your business intelligence system with your billing system. And nowadays in software, there's a lot of APIs, RESTful API and all that. So I believe that protocol to make bots communicate with each other or microbots communicate with each other is still to be built. So, but imagine that you say, hey Siri, how much money do I have in my bank account? Well, Siri doesn't know that, but Siri might communicate with the microbot in your bank, right? Where there is a standard protocol that say, Siri could say, sure, let me forward your question to maybe not Siri, right? But maybe this other name that will have that information for you. And then, hey, this is Hans from Netherlands, from whatever bank. Your balance now is this amount. Thank you. And then the conversation goes back. So you could have these microbots interacting with each other.
Yeah, so you have bots about handovers, but they don't even have to be within the specific domain. So identity becomes a big issue, maintaining contacts between bots. Because if I have Siri talk to my bank, there's how do you carry contacts from one architecture to the next while respecting my identity, respecting my data? These are very tricky. These are tricky
very
questions.
tricky things. So how can we design a protocol for all that A, always works, and B, is secure, right? Because when you add a new protocol, it's a matter of time that then the bad guys will start saying, how can we exploit that? And then the new ideas for hackers to get into the system, right?
I know a system that's working on this problem. I'll show you some other time.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you're gonna like it. No, I feel like we can talk for a very long time, and in fact, for people listening to this or watching this, we're also going to be doing that because So I'm going to cut you off now a little bit because we're sort of at the end of our time. But for people listening to this, if you want to hear more, Jordi also has a podcast. He's going to be interviewing me, so we have plenty to talk about. So you can also tune in for that. Jordi, for people that have listened to your story, that like what you do, that are interested in learning more, where do they find you? How do they reach out to you? What do you want them to do?
Yes, totally. So, the company, right? My company is Inbenta. With B as in boy, so they can find me there. My LinkedIn, super easy to find, Jordi Torras. They have to just search there. There's another guy who I think is a basketball player, so that's not the one. It's the other guy. It's the other one. Right. And with LinkedIn, what I try to do is be open with any connection that is getting into my network profile, and it's just it might take a few times, but any message in my LinkedIn profile eventually I will read and answer. That's what I can tell.
That's a wonderful promise. I've said that many times, but it's very difficult to keep up.
It requires a little bit of work, but yes, that's what I'm doing.
Sometimes you're a couple months late, but thank you so much. I very much enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. It's very interesting. Like I said, I used to work at a competitor of yours, so your name would always come up, and we'd kind of look at you, but we never had a chance to really chat, and I learned a lot from your perspective on the industry. So thank you so much for doing this, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me here.
Hey there, you made it to the end. Congratulations. I really appreciate that. I know you're busy, so you've listened to a full episode, so congrats on you. Great job. So now what should we talk about? No, I'm just kidding. First of all, thanks. Second of all, if you want to learn more about Conversation Design Institute, I highly recommend that you go to the website conversationdesigninstitute.com, and there you can sign up for a free account and start your learning journey. So you can learn about AI training, conversation design, conversational copywriting. There's lots of technology courses. So now that you've gathered these technology agnostic skills, what are you going to do next? Are you going to learn about AlanApp, Qbox, Rasa, Cognigy? We have all these different technology courses as well. So there's a whole portfolio. So I recommend, going there, creating a free account, watching a few videos. If that's enough for you, great. If you want more, you can just enroll and become a certified professional. These courses are really good if you are, an individual designer, writer that wants to learn about conversational AI. But if you're an enterprise and you're looking to scale up your team, lots of enterprises onboard their entire team to these courses to scale them up quickly. And it's also an option to add extra workshops with that and extra coaching sessions, so you quickly get that enterprise team where you want it to be. If that's a little too much, maybe there's also papers you can download on the website, maybe learn a bit about how we've helped Vodafone scale up 100 people in different countries, in different languages, using different technologies, creating the Toby chatbot in apps, on websites, in voice, all these types of things. So you can learn about that too. The best way to stay in touch, follow the podcast. You'll hear all the latest updates. Say hello on Twitter. HVDAM is my handle. Stands for Hans van Dam, obviously. Or just type in my name on LinkedIn. I post regularly. I like to engage with people there. So feel free to do that. So again, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Happy to meet again for the next one.